It fits the vibe of your show for sure. It fits the vibe of your show for sure. It fits the vibe of your show for sure.
Welcome back to the BestWorst03 podcast. I'm your host, Josh Valewa. Today's guest, I'm super excited to spend some time with. Josh, I've known Josh since we were 10 years old. Josh was born in the Midwest, but now he's based out of Long Beach, California. Josh goes by Josh One, and he's a music producer and DJ. Josh has been DJing. I mean, I know, and he might have to correct me on this, but I know for sure he's been DJing at least since high school. But his love for music goes way back. Definitely well before when I met him in the 5th grade. His first release solo was Contemplation in 2001, and since then, Josh has gone on to work with artists like Aloe Black, Keith Murray, and others, as well as do some music for Atlantic and Elektra Records, which is super cool. I know for sure that your reach has been global, and it's super excited I've been excited to follow you over the years and see the recognition that you've gotten all around the world, as well as here in the United States. You can find Josh at Boom Note on Instagram and Twitter, and you can listen to his work on Josh One at Spotify. Welcome, Josh One. How you doing, Josh? Know the Boom?
Good, man. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Good, man. Good. I'm glad you agreed to do this. I think people should know that the music that we bring in and do transitions for on this podcast is actually music that you actually allowed me access to and produce. And so if people are hearing that and it's hitting for them like it hits for me, then this is the dude you need to check out.
It's crazy to see that you picked that one. That one's from a long time ago, but it fits the vibe of your show for sure.
Yeah, so. Man. Great timing. So let me just set a little backdrop. I mentioned before in the introduction that we've known each other since we were 10 years old. And so that's a long time ago. I remember as I think about the story, I think about how I'd crashed a birthday party. Like Jonas or somebody, you were having a birthday party. We didn't know each other. We were both brand new to the school. Sunnyside. Yeah. And Jonas invited me to this birthday party. I went to your house, some random kid in the neighborhood, and we started we just somehow our names were the same, and we just hit it off. And I remember at some point we started hanging, and one day you took me to your room and you pulled out this brown shoebox, and it had a bunch of cassette tapes, and it was all this old school hip hop, and that was like back in the day. So if we're talking about you had all the OG stuff.
MC Shan and Beastie Boys. Well, that was even before Beastie Boys, I think.
It was before BC.
I don't know. I remember getting into that when I lived in Louisiana before I moved to Garden Grove. And I just remember everybody being into hip hop and stuff at my school. And it was just, I really had just defaulted right into it, and I loved it right away. People were breakdancing at pep rallies, and, I was like in 3rd grade back then. Moved out here for 4th grade and then met you like in 5th. But it was just, I was into it. I loved it. And I'm glad I found like-minded individuals such as yourself.
Yeah, we had this shared love for music. Josh and I played sports all throughout, football, and then Josh became this star athlete in baseball. And we had that sports connection, but music was our original tie. Josh, I think, remind me and correct me if I'm wrong, but so when you came in 4th grade, you all were you in Downey?
Yeah, we stayed in Downey first because they were looking for a house. My parents were looking for a house in Orange County, and that was a culture shock, to say the least. I came from a white and black environment in Louisiana to pretty much all Mexican environment in Downey, and it was just a whole different thing. I'm like, okay, this is it. Let's go.
Man, it's crazy our upbringing, because then if you think about it, then you come to Garden Grove and it is like Asian, Mexican.
Next thing you know, it's all
everybody.
Yeah, it's crazy. I loved it. I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, the stuff that I've learned and been shown over the years, it's just it's amazing.
Yeah, we're very fortunate, man. I mean, definitely. The Polynesians, I mean, we just had everybody. I mean, we even had a Japanese friend in Southern California. Yep. Still do.
Just chatting with him earlier. Making jokes.
Shout out to Ben. Yeah, man. So let's go back here. So you tell us where were you born and kind of that you told us a little bit about the transition, but where were you born and what really kind of pulled your family to the West Coast?
So I was born in Sioux City, Iowa, which is in Sioux City, Iowa, in the middle of the country, basically a little north of Omaha, right on the border of Nebraska, Iowa. And basically, my dad was going to school and stuff, so he was pursuing aerospace. So we moved to like Indiana and then to Washington as he got a job at like Boeing or whatever. And then after that, down to Louisiana, where it's like kind of like a NASA program down there. And then moved here and then basically just ended up here, stayed here forever for the most part, you know?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
so you settled in Garden Grove and we lived like right around the block from each other where we kind of did sleepovers all the time. I remember as kids, your mom had extra like 2 or 3 kids between me and my brothers eating up all the snacks. I think
Right.
we snuck a beer, I think, at some point. That Coors Light, I remember, or
Absolutely.
something.
Not sure what he was drinking at the time. They rarely drank. It was weird. But, you know, once we discovered that a little later on our own, it wasn't, didn't go over too well, but yeah,
Yeah. Well,
it
I
was
know
fun.
for yeah, they probably didn't even notice it missing.
No.
So as we kind of grew up together, and then I remember we got into high school, and then I remember house music was the big thing. It finally hit the West Coast, and it was a different type of
Yeah.
house than you heard in Chicago and everything else. And I remember
Yeah.
that's really where our music taste started expanding a little bit more.
Yeah. Shout out to DJ Coco, the guy that got me into DJing for that, because we started going to clubs. Like, well, they weren't really clubs. They were like 16 and over joints that we used to have around here. It was like really random. And it was like Peppers and Red Onion and stuff like that. And I met Coco basically like when I was a junior, I believe, sophomore or junior. And he just turned me on to all kinds of things, like from house to hip hop to just different styles of music. Because prior to that, it was all hip hop. I was like, I don't know what that other stuff is, but I'm cool on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Good old backpack mentality that I still carry around with me sometimes, but getting used to it. You know, 45 years old, trying to shake it off.
Yeah, some things are hard to shake off.
But yeah, the house music was a big thing. You know, it wasn't the rave kind of situation. It was more of like kind of like a lot of like Latin house, like a lot of house parties and stuff, like in Santa Ana and stuff. That's when I ended up helping him like kind of DJ, and then kind of went on my own after that. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of like a party crew scene for the most part, and it was kind of dangerous too at the same time. It was different people would show up, and you know, they might not be as party oriented. You know, they may have some other agendas going on as far as who's there, and you know, and I was just trying to play music and be around it and have fun, but other people took it to the next level. You know, fights, guns. Our high school was pretty dangerous. Probably didn't make the news as much as other high schools, but you know, a lot of Vietnamese gangs and guns and stuff like that. But
Do you remember like in junior high, we went to a place called Jordan Junior High, and I remember kids getting jumped in the racquetball courts, man. And there were generation of gangs where you'd drive by their house and you're like, why is this kid in the gang? And then you see his dad and his homies hanging out in front, and you're like, yeah, these dudes are real legit
dude, it was
gangsters.
no joke. I mean, they surrounded. We had like a dance. Next thing you know, they turned the lights on, and I don't know if this is a good way to like, you know, carry on some like a trauma protocol or whatever, but they're like, the lights come on, and then like they're like, they got the place surrounded, so just stay calm. I mean, that's probably not the way to do things. I mean, you work in education, I don't really know, but I was like, what do you mean? You know what I mean? And basically, they were there before the cops, and the cops really couldn't get it under control because, you know, a lot of those dudes that were like 22 had like 13-year-old girlfriends or something at our
Some real straight, right?
some weird stuff going on. I was like, all right. But all right, so we stayed calm, and then you know, after that, and then you know, there was a riot. I happened to just get caught in the middle of something. I think it was that day or something close to that day. Just walking home, and then we got another friend, Jonas. Actually, I see him over there being a hero, and then he goes down. Like 20 guys come out of a car, 3 cars with like tennis rackets, and I get bopped in the head, fall down, and I get up, and I'm just like, what's going on? Like.
That was a
It
brutal.
was wild. And the sad thing was, a lot of those guys that were friends of those guys were my buddies. And, they're apologizing for it. Like, sorry, I'm like, well, where were you? I'm just kidding. But, yeah, it was it was interesting.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't know about my upbringing for sure. It's good for them to hear that about your background and upbringing as well, is that, yeah, Garden Grove was such a very mixed place, both economically and ethnically and everything. And with all the good stuff that came along with that, but there were all these pockets of some pretty tough things. I remember that big fight. Those guys were older. They all rolled up in this car and they piled out like clowns. I don't know how many of them.
Like, how many people could fit in like a Acura, dude? Like 19 and like just sprawled out, man. It was wild.
And they were just beating up junior high kids, man.
It was insane.
It made no sense.
I just saw my boy go down. I was like, went over there and I don't even know. I definitely didn't get a punch in. I just got a tennis racket to the back of the dome. Fell straight on my head.
Concussion.
I remember getting kicked by like 6 people, just kind of covering my head, got up. And then that's when the lump developed on the front of my head, golf ball, the gorb.
The Gorb, I remember the Gorby. I remember you had for a little while you had a little bit of a scar, and we used to call it Gorbachev. This is how cruel kids are.
Boy, the one-liners we come up with are just ridiculous.
I'm telling you, we if you went through something tragic like getting a concussion and you had a scar, or that it wasn't permanent, but we named Josh Gorby, or we'd refer to it as Gorbachev, Gorby.
I still live with that to this day, man. I'm going to therapy for it.
I'm pretty sure you got me on quite a few as well. All right, man. So after, I'm thinking about as we moved through middle school into high school, you mentioned Bolsa being unsafe. I remember watching this dude running and a bunch of people running after him. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And him getting stabbed with a pen. And I thought, this is just violent. Like, it's just the craziness.
I just don't know. When did you end up, what year did you leave?
I left our junior year in the middle of right before the end of the semester.
You were smart about it. Because it was just awful. I mean, the stuff we saw was just, like I said, I wouldn't change it for the world of where we grew up and went there, but it was dangerous. People were getting stabbed with pens. I don't know. I don't know. I think it was the school districts that got all merged in with the Westminster thing, because the Garden Grove thing was fine, and then when it went to Westminster, it started like copping neighborhoods that were just like pockets that we weren't like maybe familiar with, and there were some bad kids. I mean,
some rough kids.
How they grew up, but I was scared. I mean, you go to school, and at least we had a good crew. We had a crew of like, once we started going to high school, we had a good crew of like 10, 20 people. You know what I mean? So we were pretty solid, but it was a different thing. Sure.
Yeah, I remember our crew was so diverse. We had people like Rocky Yo. Kind of separated from us, I think, once we got to middle school, but we had Ben, we had Brian, and then we brought in like the Jeffersons. And so we ended up having this really, really diverse crew. And it was just I'm with you on that. I would never trade it for the world. It was just a great experience. But I always wonder if our parents knew how much was going down at school, because I don't think I ever talked to my mom about how rough things were.
But when I came home with the Gorb, with the golf ball hanging off the front of my head, I think they got a little description of it, because it was, I was crying. I'm like, what? Then the next thing you know, it was just like, what? And my mom was going to go over that. She was going to do something. I'm like, no, we can't, or something like that, something to that effect. And I don't know.
Yeah, I remember, just to go back a little bit of ways, I remember somebody getting airlifted from our parking lot who got stabbed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that was in junior high. So we get to high school again, same old, but
high.
Yeah, that was in junior high. But fortunately, in high school, we stayed on the sports track. And I remember, I think you decided to fade away from football and really focus in on baseball. I remember I was in football getting introduced to wrestling and track, and so we kind of, our crew who we kind of stayed tied with, even if all of them weren't athletes, they all found things outside of the gang life, which was really a saving grace.
Yeah, none of us, we had a thug or two, we on deck as we got to, what I mean? Just in case.
You need a goon.
Because we used to go to Studio K, and that was wild. Do you remember that? Yeah. We go to Studio K, and they'd have 2 clubs, and there would be race wars. I mean, it was wild. I mean, we all saw some, they had Cloud 9, and then they had Studio K, and they would just be let out both at the same time. And then everyone just like walking to their cars, or I don't even know, getting picked up by my mom in a van. Remember, we get dropped off in the van, and I would just see riots, and it was literally based on race. I remember that. Like, it was just like, who knows where those people are from? You know, I mean, it was such a, you know, it's Knott's Berry Farm, so it's pulling people from like all kinds of different cities, probably LA, like, you know, come to find out later on, this guy named Tony Stewart, like he used to DJ there. He got me, I met him through Coco, and he was like a DJ there. And I met all these people that over the years that went there. It's pretty historic place right there.
I remember Studio K. I think Disneyland had their own version, but we never went to that one. It was like
I think I went once. I was like, this is whack. Like,
yeah,
man, this is the Disney version of the street spot down in Buena Park or whatever. Also, yeah. I don't know if you went, but there was even, they tried to do one in at Six Flags at Magic Mountain, and that one was straight up dangerous, like too. Like that was no joke either. I didn't know anybody there, but we went one time. And I was like, all right, I'm good. But
so we had this real interesting mix of grittiness, music, the love of dance. I remember dance was a big through dance crews, you know, and
we have some routines on tape somewhere, I think. You know.
Yeah, we have routines on tape somewhere. Please let's not bring those out.
Buried, yeah. Where I'm Vanilla Ice in the middle. I mean, you know, I got to throw it out there. And I got my backup dancers, you and Joseph.
Yeah. Josh is Vanilla Ice. My 29.
Yeah, you know, if I need to sell some records, I might just need to bust that out. I'm sorry. I mean, I could blurt out your guys' faces on the side or whatever. If you need me. But like, I mean, times might get tough. So, you know.
Yo, man, keep me on there. I want people to know I used to be able to move.
Hey, man, you guys had that pop lock down. Like,
that's that breakdancing days. All right, man. So you brought up Coco a couple of times. I remember right around that time. So tell us a little bit more about like how you started getting more into the DJing piece and really getting to behind the scenes on the music.
So basically, when I played baseball or whatever, and I got hurt as a sophomore, and I was on varsity, and I ended up having to get surgery on my elbow. And at that point, I was just kind of like sitting on the bench with Robert Fierro, of all people. Rest in peace. Do you remember Robert Fierro?
Yeah, I remember.
Tragic. Yeah. And so we would just sit there and like we would play cards and like literally cards like on the bench because he was a pitcher and, you know, didn't play every game or whatever. But so I'd be on there on the bench just chilling and just kind of in my sling. Just, you know, my whole dream was to play baseball, you know, hence the reason I didn't go to college because I didn't know what college was without sports. But, you know, which is a really ignorant statement nowadays. But back then, you know, I was just like, okay, so my arm heals up and they're like, you're good to go. We just want you to play summer league. But by that time, I had already discovered going out to these underage dance club things that Coco used to play at. And they wanted me to play summer league and it kind of just conflicted with my clubbing schedule. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And dropped the bomb that I'm not going to play baseball anymore. And that was a big thing. Like, talk about the best, worst thing, worst, best thing, best, worst thing.
Maybe best thing that never happened.
Best thing that never happened, whatever it is, you know. After that, I just got into music and kind of just didn't look back. Like I said, didn't go over well with a lot of people. And just, I really don't really, it just took it from there. I mean,
so here you are, you're finding something you love and you've been doing it for a while. It's something that you didn't need your arm to be fully recovered to do.
Yeah.
It could explore this love of music that you've had since forever. Plus you're getting this extra exposure to other types of music.
Yep.
And then tell me if I'm wrong. I'm guessing, you know, you have family pressure, you have friend pressure, Absolutely. You have coach pressure. And so like at a young age, what made you persist and keep pushing in that direction despite all that pressure you had?
I just loved it so much. I mean, there's really nothing else can explain. I just loved the music, and it just took me over. It was a trip how it happened. I just was obsessed with it. I'd start. I hadn't bought turntables at that point yet. It was like till the next year when I bought like one turntable, and then when Coco used to DJ, I'd like cover him, and you know I'd see him do his thing, and then I started practicing at his house, and then after that it was just a wrap. Like we would just practice scratching all day long and mixing, and I ruined a bunch of his records practicing, and I still owe him for that. Sorry, Coco, I didn't mean to do that, but you know,
yeah,
I think I got him back with the ones I got him in the future. But you know, I leave him in piles trying to do tricks, like doubles and stuff, and just, you know, just hyper kid. You know, I'm still one of the most hyper people you probably know. You know, I thought it would go away after a while, but apparently it didn't. And, you know, it kind of just, after high school, it just, I did have a job for a while. I was doing some drafting, kind of trying to take after my father, which was, you know, a noble profession, and I did it. And then still music would just kept bugging me. Like I just couldn't wait to get home. You know, I had a decent job, you know, doing that stuff. And after a while, it just parlayed into me just saying, I'm done with my job. I finally put a record out, actually. Ended up making beats after all the DJing stuff, playing at underground raves and this and that. Ended up making a track. My buddy, Poet Named Life, who was a DJ for the Black Eyed Peas for a long time, basically was just like, man, you need to put this song out. And it actually had your sister on it, you know, and awesome vocalist. Shout out to Julie. And basically it took off. It was on a compilation. It took off, got licensed a whole bunch of times. And after that, my job was like, yo, you need to make a decision on what you're going to do in life. I was like, well, because I kept pushing it back, like, hey, I'd call in the morning and be like, hey, I'll be in at like 9:30. Is that okay? And then after a while, it was like 9:45, 10. They're like, look, at what time can you be here? And if you're 1 minute late, you're finished. I was like, noon. They're like, okay. So I finally got it dialed in with a part-time job that covered my stuff. Because, you know, when you do music, it's tough. Like, it's just tough to make a living. Like, you know, especially when you're that young, you know. But I ended up going to London and Germany, and just it just went well. You know, it was just one song, and it turned into a house remix from King Britt, this and that. And, you know, I've told the story so many times, I short for words on it now. I'm just like, you know, but ultimately it just pulled me further and further. And then I just knew after that I just had to just follow it. And that's kind of in a nutshell how it happened. There's so many million other things that, you know, lead up to that. But
no, well, that's great. I mean, I think it points out a key few things. Of course, one is that continued idea of loving something, having passion for it.
Yeah.
But then also getting to a point where you have to make a tough decision.
It was
You're
tough.
like, look, right now, you know, I'm not making full-time money in this thing, and I'm working in this job. And how do I balance the two? And people putting pressure on you once again in your life to pick something else over the other.
Well, basically, that led to me getting a full-on record deal with this company. And so I'm trying to make a record at home, balance going out, balance going to the bar, you know, all these kind of things. And, you know, basically they're just like, okay, how much you making at your job? And I told them, and they're like, all right, you know, basically we'll give you that if you can finish this record. I mean, geez, where are those deals nowadays? Anybody listening? You know, can I quit my day job? You know, get the same amount of pay? You know? So basically that happened. I mean, it was a miracle, you know. So it took about a year for some odd reason to make like, you know, 12 songs, which, you know, I could probably do in a couple weeks nowadays, you know, but there was a lot put into those songs, you know. It was like a legitimate, you know, record deal, you know, where I had to deliver a certain amount, art had to be done, you know, just musicians, clearances, just all the stuff, you know. But so that ended up coming out, and that was a lot of pressure. I mean, every day I would just call up, hey man, blah blah blah. There's like, where's the record? Where's the record? That's all they. I'm like, I'm working on it, but where's the record? You know, just keep shutting me down and stuff. And but you know, I mean, that's the record business. You know, it wasn't like the early '90s where everybody else had a traditional record deal and they had to deliver. I really don't know where I'm going with this. Basically, it was kind of similar to that, where I felt that pressure. The pressure I hear about people talking about, I had that pressure on me. And that's what I always wanted. And when I got it, I was like, do I want this? You know, then I'm struggling with that. And then it's just like, you know what I mean? It's just,
yeah, well, I know that let's talk about that a little bit more. So here you are, you're doing your dream job. You're getting paid to do it. It's connected to something you truly love, but it's not easy.
No.
How do you stay with something like, what's the litmus test, or what's the point where you say like, hey, I'm fully committing to this for better, for worse, you know, like a marriage, you know, a good marriage, or you make an exit plan?
Well, at the time it was weed, alcohol,
real talk, right? Yeah.
Myself, you know, like just a lot of just belief that I can make it happen. It was it was hard. And you're going against the grain, nobody's, outside of my mom, go for your dreams. You're not getting, you're not getting the support. They're like, so what do you do? So what are you doing? Like, well, I make a record and then, we sell it and put it on TV and or whatever. And it's just, it's tough. It was tough to convince people that that's what I was going to do. You know what I mean? Like when other people were actually already by that time having a family and houses and stuff like that,
Yeah, I hear that. There's this traditional thing that you see your friends around you buying cars, getting married, having kids. I think I was one of them that was getting married, really young and having kids early. And so you see all that, but here you are, and it's great because this generation now doesn't feel the same pressure we did to get married and have kids.
Oh no, now it's like, see if you like it first. And, date someone for a decade and see if you like it, or I don't know, live with them for 5 years and then, see if it's tolerable or whatever. I don't know what it is, but it wasn't like that in the Midwest, when I'm a teen pregnancy, basically.
Right. I mean, the pressure on you was hard. We look at my mom, her first kid, she had when she was young. Your mom started when she was young. I mean, our parents definitely, started at that time. But Josh, can we go back to something you said that I think I stepped over? You said you had belief in yourself. Where does that come from? Like, where does that come from, especially when things are not always rocking the way you want it to happen?
Man, you just got to dig deep. I really don't know how to explain it. You just feel it. I just feel it in my heart and in my gut that I just couldn't stop doing it. Like I went too far and I couldn't go back. And, I just had to reach down and just find it and just keep going. And honestly, I'll be honest. Like it's not just me. You know what I mean? I had a bunch of, for all the people that were the naysayers, I had equal amount of like, you're doing it. You know what I mean? My girlfriend at the time was just like, man, you're going to be the best at this. This is going great. I was like, I'm going to quit. You know what I mean? Like, it just so many times, if I didn't have friends and, I'm DJing out and obviously I was pretty decent at it and, people are enjoying themselves. I'm like, okay, I have something here. It's not like, but I used to fight it a lot. I'd be like, man, this can't be right. I fought it for a long time. Like, it shouldn't be this hard. You know what I mean? Like it can't be this hard. Like, I guess, I guess all the rap songs when I heard that it was this hard, came to just.
Them rappers are philosophers. They ain't lying, right?
Are hard to earn. Okay. Got it. Absolutely. 1,000%,
You're like,
so,
living it.
A lot of support from my friends and, stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I noticed, in my life as well, some of my hard times that I've been through. And in fact, the reason why I put this podcast together was for that exact reason, was going through rough times, doubting myself, telling myself this fake story about myself, telling myself that my path wasn't the right path and my goals were too big professionally and personally, and having people around me being like, dude, what are you talking about? You're great. You're good. Keep it going. And I know I've done that for them, but like then what you're talking about, that piece of that, even if you're going to have naysayers, having the right people around you and cutting off the naysayers, for me, I found to be critically important.
You got to get rid of that, man. Like that negative stuff. And I've been, negative for a long time, you know what I mean? And I've tried to shake that as much as I could. And I struggle with anxiety and, sometimes anxiety could lead to depression. I've been depressed at grip, throughout the years, but, knowing yourself and like shaking it off is, half the battle, you know what I mean? Just to even like get in front of the computer and work on stuff like, oh no. And then you start tripping out about things and just shaking it off and battling it. It's just, there's that battle there before anything else begins for me, in the morning. How's it going to be today? Okay. I'm all right. You know what I mean? Like I'm alive. Okay. Because then you start just making up stuff in your mind and start putting all these scenarios that just will never pan out to anything except some kind of stupid worry that you just don't need to be incorporating into your daily operation. There's another Gangstar reference for you. DJ Premier is my hero, I say. But yeah.
I connect with the anxiety and dealing with bouts of depression. And I think, again, sometimes people see you from the outside. It looks so good because of the things you've been able to do in your career. Yep. But they don't know the internal struggles. I love when people come out and say like, look, I deal with that anxiety, the stress, the panic, the self-doubt. And somehow there's some tools that, I utilize, whether it's just starting the day and being like, we're going to figure out the day and make it work. And that's amazing. Or having good people behind you. think those are really good points, and that's good for people to listen to and understand.
It's much. Anxiety is no joke, and depression is no joke, and mental health is no joke. I'm not gonna, I don't want to sit up here and parade like how much of no joke that it is, but I mean, it's just it's tough. It makes stuff really hard, and you have to just believe that it's going to be okay at some point. Whether it be in God, faith in God, go to church, do whatever you got to do. You know what I mean? Like, whatever gets you by. I'm a firm believer in that. You know what I mean? Like, obviously some people, like I said, just go to church. Other people just drink. I did struggle with alcohol for a long time. I can admit that. I haven't drank in a while, but alcohol is not going to solve anything except make it more confusing. Sure, some stuff might be fun in between, but at the end of the day, that's not the advice I give. To sit there.
That's been my experience.
Hey man, I live in Long Beach. There's a bar on every corner. It goes bar, church, bar, like on one street. Like, it's like, why is it set up like that? You know what I mean? It's like, but,
do your sinning and do your repenting in the same block?
Man. Yeah, right next door. Just right. But for the most part, I've had really good people around me, good friends like yourself. Even we don't live next to each other, but I can call you up anytime, shoot the shit for like an hour, and feel better about things that are happening. And and I'm grateful for all of that stuff, dude. Because without like a support system, you don't have anything. You can't do it alone. And I'm not just like doing music or doing whatever. I'm just even doing life. Like, it's just, what's up. It's just, you need to have good people around you.
I don't think that can be underscored enough, Josh. And I think that people need to really hear that, I think sometimes we get this pressure, especially as we become adults, where we feel like we need to do it all on our own. And nobody who's successful is doing it on their own in personal or professional world.
No, I've rolled through this, no manager 99% of the time. And, it's been tough, it's a daily struggle, but since then, I've managed to do tons of things, got a bunch of accolades or whatever, but like, it's just, good support team is clutch.
So Josh, we're going to get to the best worst thing question here in a minute, but I want you to talk about what you're doing now. Like, I mean, I know you stay active, musically. Yeah. And so let's talk about what you're doing now.
So probably about 15 years ago, I started Boom Note Music, which is a production company / label. And I got a bunch of kind of like-minded artists, beat ventriloquists, my boys make ridiculous tracks. They're on my label. There's tons of people on the label and stuff like that. But basically, I just look for great music and stuff that I think would inspire other people to do stuff that inspires me. Stuff I pretty much like. This is post. This is all post record deal. Life. So I gotta do stuff myself. You know what I mean? There's. I've been really fortunate to have a lot of stuff on television. Great television shows. A couple films. Commercials, just whether it be my music or stuff that I represent via Boom Note Music. Boom Note is Notaboom, my last name inverted. Saw it on one of my uncle's emails and I jacked him. Like, sorry, I'm gonna use that now, but can't take 1,000%. Just gonna throw that out there right there. But but so I have that. That's like the daily thing, basically just making stuff daily, getting in front of the computer, seeing what songs I got. Making new stuff. But I DJ as well. Not currently, obviously, but, due to the little situation we got going. But for the most part, I DJ every Friday, Saturday. I do the music at like Nobu out here and a couple nightclubs down here and stuff. I did DJ around the world a bunch of times, all through LA and stuff like that. And it's been good, Now I'm 45. I still think I'm 25 sometimes, but I'm like, dang, 20 years gone. Okay. How it is.
Yeah. I'm feeling you. The one thing I know about you, well, first of all, time definitely flies. But the one thing I know about you, you're just consistent. You're consistently working. You're consistently getting opportunities to do music live and to do music behind the scenes and produce. both commercially and also just from an artistic perspective. And that's why I wanted to have you on this podcast. I want people, people who are finding, even if no matter how they view themselves, the world views you as successful. And I want people to talk about their honest stories about kind of how they got there and the truth and reality of the grind.
I mean, it's tough. I mean, there's times when, you have no money and you're just like, for the week. And since I have, been a little more fortunate than others, I've been able to accumulate gear and equipment that, compete with big studios, that I can make a sound that is, up there with other things, I just remember back in the days when I had a 4-track and I was like, man, only if I had this, I could do this and that, I rarely use the word, but, the word blessing is, appropriate when it comes to thinking about how it used to be that tough. You know what I mean? 4-track meaning, what a 4-track is, right?
No, I have no idea what
we're both talking on here. You could add 2 more people, and then 4 things could go at once. But it's an analog thing that's, with a cassette. And, it's not the most high tech of thing. At the time it was a big deal. You make mixtapes on it and stuff like that and record songs, record vocals and stuff. But, with the technology now, I mean, when I did have that record deal, I used to go into a big studio with my, MPC and all this kind of stuff and drop all my music through all this equipment. And, basically, I think I can get a better sound now with what I got going at my house. Shout out to Universal Audio, one of my sponsors. For that.
Yeah, we give them a shout out to Universal Audio. Is that what you said?
Yeah, they make they make all the good stuff that I use to create with.
Universal Audio, they make all the good stuff Josh One works with. Go and holler at your boy if you want to send a sponsorship my way. I'm playing, Josh.
Oh, there it is. Get it.
There it is. All right, man. So listen, here we are. We're at that moment.
Yep.
Again, the background for folks listening is this is the Best Worst Thing podcast. Is a chance for people to share about not only their story, but also either a moment personally or professionally where they hit some sort of a setback challenge and how they went through that challenge, how they got through it, and what they learned on the other end that they may be using. And so, Josh, you've had that tee up. Why don't you talk to us about your best worst thing?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say that it is what we talked about earlier. The best worst thing would be when I got hurt playing baseball to literally change the course of my life. I'm not saying that I would have went on to a D1 school and, been this superstar, but at least that was on the horizon that that's what I wanted, so it changed me in so many ways to just think about doing something else. And I didn't know music was just going to up and just scoop me up and just call it a day on that, and be my path from here on out. But basically that took me in another direction, otherwise I would have I don't know what I would be doing. I'll be honest with you. I mean,
well, talk us through this, Josh, because here you are a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
You are varsity, which didn't happen at our high school. Sophomores did not play varsity baseball. You had this arm for days. You're playing shortstop. So you're starting as a young 14, 15-year-old at shortstop.
Well, I started at third. I started at third because I couldn't play short. And the reason I got hurt was because the coach, I had a bad habit. I threw sidearm and I had a bad habit. And he's like, you can't play third because there was already a senior at short. He's like, you can't play third and throw sidearm, which is a known fact. So I started working out on the side, trying to practice every single day. And I ended up getting tendonitis and I didn't want to lose my position. So I just worked as hard as I could to the point where I had just hurt my arm so bad that I had to have surgery. You know what I mean? So
So you go through the surgery, takes you out of the sport. So now here you are, your mindset is, well, now you have to make a decision. I remember because for folks who are listening, I went to the University of Iowa and one of our dreams was Josh was going to play baseball for Nebraska. I was going to play football for Iowa. We both never played college sports, but we were going to meet in in Iowa.
But you went to college and you went to Iowa. So you're the man for that.
Well, I did, but I would never would have went to Iowa if it wasn't for Josh. And that's 100% factual. And everybody who asks me how I ended up at Iowa in Iowa City from Southern California, I always mention Josh Notably. So Josh, our plan, and then we were going to hang out in Lawton, Iowa with Grandma Fowler for the holidays or something. I just remember that. That story is what is seared in my head. So here is this plan. And again, we grew up playing sports and now sports are just taken away from you. So tell us a little bit more. So now you have this time where you've now effectively worn your arm out.
Yep.
And so now that baseball is not going to be a thing for you.
Absolutely.
So this opens up this lane for music. Is that what you're saying, that this kind of this shift in your goal opened up a space that was for you?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, that's basically just sums it all up. I mean, I just don't, like I said, I just really don't know what I would be doing. Imagine if I still pursued baseball, didn't get hurt, and didn't even go to college, for baseball or for anything at all, at that matter. Who knows what I would be doing? So I'm thinking that tragedy was actually one of probably the best things that ever happened to me.
Yeah. So when you're going through this injury, Josh, it had to mess with your head.
Oh,
so how did you get through that? How did you get through that?
I was so depressed. I mean, I was tragic. The minute I heard that I couldn't play, or, it's funny because it's weird how it works, because within that, while being hurt, whatever, like months, however many months that was, like the whole season, basically, I realized that I just was not into it anymore. After all those years, I was like, you know what? I don't love it anymore. My baseball coach used to always say, he's like, if you don't love the game anymore, quit. You know what I mean? And I don't know how, that's up for debate as far as like how accurate that can be to certain situations, I'd imagine. But, because there's been many times I want to quit music, but I'm not going to do it. You know what I mean? Every morning I wake up, I'm like, is this what I need to be doing? But, without getting off the subject, it was just during that time. And I just,
So you find yourself, you're feeling down, you're feeling depressed. Tell me a little bit. So is that when you met Coco? Is that like?
Yeah, it was during all that time. And then I started going out, DJing, practicing. And then I just became, it was like baseball all over again. Or, yeah. I used to always say, man, if I'm not making hits doing that, I'm going to be making hits doing this. I used to always say that. But that was my little saying that I held on to for a while. But still haven't got my hits, you know what I mean? But,
But you're batting,
I'm still on the lineup, on the roster, you know what I mean? So, so it was during that time. And then I just, like I said, just fell in love with music. And I was already into it back in the days, but there was something about DJing. Us, man, when we were kids, we're just like, always like, like just copying the scratching with our mouths and stuff. We're like, what is that? It's, little did I know, like years later, that I'd be like scratching and shit. And it would just be, I don't know. It just shifted from one love to another, like real quick. And I just really didn't look back. But yes, the anxieties and all the stuff of basically choosing one of the hardest things to probably do for a living. Sure, people do it on the side, but, I had no idea it was going to be my day job or whatever. You know what I mean? Like when I did have that record deal, it felt like it was my day job. But then when the record deal was gone, I was like, oh, okay. Now I really got to do some shit. Like, it's tough, man.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided to do Boom Note as well, because I was just thinking to myself, I'm just like, well, if I'm only depending on my own songs, why not just take stuff that I like, find people that I like and artists that I like and help them as well, because we're all friends anyways, and, push their stuff up, And so that's kind of how my little agency / all those other things, formed. So
that's amazing, man. Well, I appreciate that. I think people who are listening, who've ever had some sort of a setback, can easily jump into that lane where they think this is the end of things. This is it. But you found a lane, and it's funny the way you describe it as it was like baseball all over again. Because I knew how much you love baseball.
Oh, that's all I would. It's yeah. I love watching it, and it's not even on. But yeah, I still love it in that regard, But
absolutely. So, if you could give some advice to somebody who's listening right now, who thought their life was going one way and they really thought that that's the direction that was set for them, and it was taken away from them, how would you sum up your advice to them?
Ooh. Well, yeah, that's a tough one. Pretty much what I said, what I was referencing before, is just basically, it's not the end of the world, like you make it up to be in your brain. Like, and if you can escape that thought process, which is really hard to do, you can get through it, look for positive things, keep positive people around you, as far as like just people that are going to support you and not bring you down. Stuff to that effect for the most part.
That's great, Josh. I think I can I can personally connect with that. And I hope that others who are going through some struggles right now and trying to figure out maybe a pivot in their life or reset, they can really listen to those words, because you're the one who's living those words in action. Well, I appreciate you doing this, Josh. You know, you're one of my oldest friends on earth, and you know how much I love you, brother. Why don't you tell the folks again where they can find you?
So my music's out there as Josh One, Josh space ONE. And you can find my Instagrams at BoomNote, Twitter at BoomNote, Facebook at BoomNote, or at Josh One. BoomNote's, you know, on the side, but yeah, just basically those joints.
Fantastic, man. Well, that's a wrap. Josh, again, thank you again for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, man. Come on.
Oh, man. My pleasure, brother. I know we're going to continue to talk, but for those of you listening, why don't you make sure you tune in next week. We have a lot of fun stuff coming up with more artists, more business folks, and nonprofit world people, and maybe a few surprises in there. So we look forward. And again, we'll see you on the next round. Thank you for listening to the Best Worst Thing podcast. I'm your host, Josh Walewa. Music is produced by DJ Josh One. You can follow him at BoomNote on Instagram and Twitter, and Josh One on Spotify. Our episodes are produced and edited by Sam Poira. You can check him out at cooljetsmusic.com. Please download us from iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite platform. And remember to share us with your friends, especially those people you think really need us in their life. Don't forget to give us a 5-star review. Thank you for listening to The Best Worst Thing.
The Best Worst Thing podcast is edited by Cool Jets Audio and Visual. You can find them at Cool Jets AV.